Owen's worked for the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources for 35 years, first in wildlife research, later as a wildlife specialist, and lately as a program coordinator. Owen co-chaired the working group that developed Canada's Stewardship Agenda 2002 and had a lead role in the 4 national stewardship conferences. He was one of the authors of this year's National State of Stewardship Report and a contributor to the provincial report. He's on the administrative team for the Stewardship Canada portal and on the leadership committee for the Stewardship Network of Ontario. And as has been mentioned, he's heading off to retirement, but like all stewards who are trying to go into retirement, we pull them back just one more time for one last thing.
I got to learn from all these other gray-haired folks that have said they've retired, yet they're still here at this conference. So, got to be careful how that happens. So now I'm going to try to incorporate what the previous 2 fellows talked about and relay what I picked out of reading through all of those handwritten reports that we were handed late last night and early this morning, and do that on about 5 hours of sleep, because I also went to the Stampede last night and got stuck on the train. I think one of the first and foremost, I was impressed by the progress that has been made over the 4 stewardship conferences that we've had, and looking at all the firsts that happened at this conference. This is the first time that we actually had a premier come and give a presentation, and a lieutenant governor. We had a tremendous amount of political representation here, and you can't get government, that level of political support, unless those guys have a sense that this is where the train's going, where the bus is going, and they realize they need to be part of it. That's a really good thing. And we did ask for that kind of support at our previous conferences, and often they would say that they would probably come, but then at the last minute they'd cancel as we got closer to the conference. That didn't happen this time. That's a really good sign. And we had, an incredible Canadian icon, Preston Manning here. We were all charged up by what great words he had for us. It was really good advice that he left us with. He's a brilliant guy. Probably why he didn't get to be Prime Minister. He's too smart. I didn't say that, did I? Obviously getting too close to retirement. And there's a lot of firsts, and I'm not going to go into them, but the more I think about how much we changed over the four conferences, I realize, well, we really have come a long way. There are a few other indicators, though, and one sort of train of thought that struck me is in 2000, one of the things that we did at that conference was confirm a lot of the things that this working group that I had worked with to develop the Canada Stewardship Agenda. A lot of the things that were discussed at that conference were to help crystallize what needed to go into that agenda. And at that time, the BC Stewardship Centre existed, the Alberta Stewardship Centre existed, and we realized that there was a good model there. That's a network at a provincial scale. We're not quite there on the national level yet, but those were good models that we wanted to grow on. So there was reference to that kind of development of a provincial scale network in Canada's Stewardship Agenda. We didn't have that in Ontario either. Subsequent to that first conference, we have developed the Stewardship Network of Ontario, and it's continued to grow. It's still got a long way to go. It's on a journey. And I provided the Secretariat support to that. That didn't come right at the beginning. That was partway into the process. The pitch was made to Ministry of Natural Resources, and they said, yeah, they could spare me because they weren't sure what else I was doing, so I might as well help those guys. And so I had a chance to work with that, and my job when I retire, they've committed to the fact that they will continue to provide the support to the Secretariat. But that group has gotten to the point of strength that they also realize that they need somebody more permanently there to do some additional things, to be the spokesperson for the organization, et cetera. And so they've recently hired a chair. So it's continuing to strengthen as well. These things happen far slower than they should. Canada's stewardship agenda is another example. We've referred to the fact that right at the beginning of this conference that we don't need yet another strategy or another action plan that doesn't get implemented. And we've also said repeatedly that we need stronger national leadership, particularly at the federal government level. And sure, it's not there. It's deplorable. It really slows progress at a time when we should be ramping up the stewardship effort across Canada. But the one characteristic of stewards across Canada, whether it's an individual steward doing something in his backyard or a group of people at the community level, the regional level, or the provincial level, or the interprovincial level, the one characteristic that we have is we're going to do this. And we've got the capability to do it. We're going to do it. If you want to be a partner, great. And that openness to partnership is anybody. You know, your next door neighbor, somebody else in the community, or right up to the federal government. We can't depend on the government to lead. I said that in my presentation on Thursday afternoon, and I can comfortably say this after 35 and a half years with Ministry of Natural Resources. Don't depend on the government to lead anything. We've got to lead first, and the government will follow. And we've seen it in all of our conferences, and we've seen it in our own personal history. But another first at this conference was that we had that Director General from Canadian Wildlife Service, Virginia Potter, who stood up here and, under a little pressure from the audience, where a question came from the floor about, lack of government leadership, she indicated that she would take our list of priorities to the Canadian Council of Ministers. Maybe a lot of you are not familiar with who those folks are because they just do their work in the background and it very seldom gets into the newspaper. But those are the folks that are actually movers and shakers within the government, and it addresses some of the problems that were identified with the barriers, with the lack of government integration. These are the folks. The Canadian Council of Ministers is not just the natural resource ministers. It's also the environment ministers. It's also the agriculture ministers. That's a great group of people to have on our side, and it's wonderful that somebody has suggested that she will get that on the agenda. And she, by the way, is the person who sets the agenda, so our odds are pretty good. Particularly if we use Preston Manning's advice and keep that issue up front, and make sure that we provide her with those little 90-second nuggets of how to frame the issues that we want taken to that table. So the things that go into our roadmap can be passed on that way.